All right. All right, here we go. Good morning to everybody. It is 10:01, Wednesday, November 12th. It is cold where I'm from. Um, in New York, it snowed yesterday. It didn't stick, but it was literally just sprinkling snow all over the place, blustery. When I woke up yesterday, I was in denial about it, but I guess it's like headed towards winter. So um, that means it's free agency time, which unfortunately for baseball fans is a slow trickle, as we know. Um, Everybody would wishes that it would all happen a little quicker. Maybe off-season trade deadline could be a potential positive in the future that could free some things up. But yeah, it's going to be a slow trickle the whole way. That's why even though free agency already started, we haven't even talked really much about the free agents. Today we're going to come up with our own top 20. We'll go look at all the guys. We'll kind of get all our thoughts on them. And we'll kind of go from there. All right, we got some information in the chat about what the temperature is everywhere else. 85 in Tucson, 85 in SoCal. So you guys are living large, feeling good. And 43 in Denver. So what's it here right now? I feel like it's about in the 40s. But that's why I went with the warm coffee today. I got to go with the warm coffee when it's cold out. Let's see what the official weather is right now. Yesterday, I know it was colder than today here, but currently, if my internet will work, it'll tell me here. 41. So 41 here. What else we got? 28 up here. That's probably in Canada. 39 in Beantown. Bring it on. And 40 in LIC. So that's right next to me. So pretty close to me. So I'm 41. They're 40 right there. And now we've done our weather roundup as we want to get started and welcome in everybody. We'll check a few things that's kicking around. This is the Dominican League standings as they stand. Aguilas off to a 6 start, 12-3. Looking real strong. Who's on that Aguilas team? These are sometimes very interesting things to look at. All right, so yesterday's game. Let's check out who was in these lineups. Gigantes and Aguilas live from Santiago, Dominican Republic yesterday. All right, Aguilas, the team in question. Is this Leody Taveras? Yep, Leody Taveras batting leadoff. Ezekiel Duran hitting second. JC Escara hitting third. See, really good baseball out here. Got a couple of Rodriguez's hitting fourth and fifth, respectively. Jonathan Clase. Is he related to our quite in trouble Clase? I don't know. Juan Lagares, there's a throwback. Wilmer Defoe's in there. Pitching, Devin Smeltzer. Which Yanoa is this? Huascar Yanoa, Braves, former, definitely was a big part of Braves when he was a rookie. Jose Quas, this is my buddy from New York, actually, who pitched in this game last night. And then on the other side, we have any other notable names just to see real quick. Hanser Alberto. Which Rojas is this? Johan Rojas from the Phillies. Jose Siri. Kelvin Gutierrez. Pablo Reyes. And then on the mound, and Mets fans will know this guy well, none other than the one and only Hansel Robles, former Met. So anyway, I thought that was interesting to look at. But it's a lot of talent. It's fun. It's fun. It's a fun place to go take a gander. All right, let's get started with the free agents. All right, so I have both of the top 30s pulled up, ESPN, MLB. Obviously, more of these will be rolled out, over the next several weeks. As again, there's no rush because free agency tends to trickle out. Winter meetings is usually the first stop, but then after that, it tends to go kind of into a long freeze. And I can tell you from experience, real quick, about free agency. So at this time of year, this is where all the interest is getting sent out there. Your agent is talking with clubs who reach out and express interest. Typically there's no offers at this point. Now, maybe every now and then you'll see a quick strike with a player and a team that the fit's just perfect and they're aggressive and they get the job done. But for the most part, it's interest. Maybe there's some preliminary talks about asking prices and things like that. And then usually it goes pretty quiet for a while. That was at least my experience. I would get 4 or 5 calls relatively early in the off season, and then it would go pretty dark all the way usually into the new year and beyond. So it's interesting. The other sports, free agency opens, and it just happens really fast. You see all these signings, everybody's getting whipped off the board. It's not really the case in MLB. It's much more of a slow drip the whole way, and that's kind of why there's no rush into freaking out about the free agents. Like we didn't work on it, during the postseason or anything. We can work on it now, so it's good. Question here was about the day-to-day. It's a lot of hurry up and wait, Dano, 100%. I mean, at the end of the day, there's not much you can do, and usually the way it goes is like there's subsets of the free agent class that all kind of go on a run at the same time. So it's like if starting with like one starting pitcher goes off the board, you might see a couple go off the board, and if a couple go off the board, then all of a sudden there's a little bit of a musical chair situation, and that kind of forces teams and players to act. It's the same in any positional group, like within the catchers, that might be the case, or within the pitchers, certainly within the relief pitchers. Like usually nobody moves until the top of the market moves, and then it all starts happening relatively quickly. But yeah, a lot of hurry up and wait for sure. And then for Dan, when will the beanie be available in the store? We're getting ready to figure that out. We have most of the product in now that's ready for this next drop, so it should be relatively soon. Me and Brett will figure that out, and then we will get that going. And this is another comment by Dan that's true. A lot of times the whole market will wait for the biggest fish. So who's the biggest fish in this year's free agent pool? Both sides agree, and they say that is Kyle Tucker. So Kyle Tucker played on the Cubs last year, got traded over there from the Astros. So number 1 on ESPN's board is Kyle Tucker, also number 1 on MLB's board. All right, let's go pull up K-Tuck real quick and take a look at, we all know about this guy, but I think some of the nuance of why people are going to be very confident and are going to pay him top dollar. I think number 1, he's already working with a below level average of sprint speed, yet he's an above average outfielder. Now this year, his outs above average range was a little bit down, as we can see at -2, but that's not been the case for most of his career. Most of his career has been pretty good. He's got excellent arm. He's a good base runner, despite not being very fast. So you don't have as much worry about his game falling off a cliff because of like a speed decline. And he's right in the middle of his strength peak, right? He's 28 right now. So you're looking at this guy getting paid probably minimum of like a 6-7 year deal is what my guess would be. Now he was a little bit down this year relative to the last time we saw him. In 2023, he had a 95 xWOB, but this year 92. I mean, it's still elite. Just trying to see what might have switched around. This year relative to the other years. The isolated power was down a little bit. Slugging's dropped a little bit. Max exit velocity is way down the last 2 years. Now, this is something that teams will look at a little bit, and they'll wonder, is this a little bit of a product of like an injury, or is this like a strength decline or a rotational, power decline? They'll definitely wonder about that a little bit, because that's a little odd to see that the max exit velocity dropped a little bit. Now, the overall exit velocity has also dropped a little bit, albeit it's still above average, and he kind of outweighed some of his things that he regressed on with a much better walk percentage this year, 96th percentile in walk. This has been a steady improvement throughout his entire career. As you can see, he was in below average walk. I think he was a little bit more of a free swinger when he first came up, and that's been steadily improving. And now he's 96th percentile in walk, and that's driven largely by this 98th percentile chase rate. So this is the holy grail for hitters, right? If you don't swing at balls and you swing at strikes and you can hit the ball hard, typically you're going to get success. He's combining all of those factors. And I'm curious to dig in a little bit more here, actually. Here's his outs above average. It looks like they actually have fallen off a cliff. So I'm curious about any Cubs fans that might be in the chat, or anybody who watched him play in the outfield over this year or last year, what their thoughts are a little bit on Kyle Tucker in the outfield, because this is going to inform a little bit of where he is athletically, I think. All right, let's see actually if I can find outfielder outs above average. Let me just see what's hurting him a little bit. So he was in the -2 this year. So he's going to be down here somewhere. Yep, Kyle Tucker. Okay. So -3 into players right. No, -3 to players right, so towards the gap. To players left towards the line, he's still positive. I don't know. It's pretty slim. You don't get to see a whole lot there. I was trying to see what maybe his jump and stuff like that. Outfield jump. All right, now we got to find him we need to find the Cubbies. Cubbies. This is like reaction time. All right, so he's 66. He's a slightly below average in outfield jump. What's interesting, though, is Tyrone Taylor, who's an outstanding outfielder, is about the same. The difference is Kyle Tucker doesn't have the sprint speed to make up for it. So that's a little bit of a concern if he's not getting the same jumps and reads, although I've always read him as a really good outfielder. The numbers generally don't lie on this. He's definitely declining a little bit in the outfield, so that's one thing to maybe worry about. Also, it looks like this year he was way more pull side pop. If you look at the spray chart, there's only 1 home run to the opposite field. There's some doubles, but I think of Kyle Tucker as an all-around hitter, all-field hitter. So, all right, now we got to figure out where he's going to fit. I still believe in him. To me, he's probably the #1 guy. Who's challenging him on these lists? Bregman on the MLB list and on the ESPN list, they're saying Framber, and they have Framber, Bellinger, Bregman. So from a position player standpoint, he's really up against Bregman or Bellinger. I think he's clearly ahead of those due to age, right? He's always been a very pull side hitter. So he doesn't go oppo a lot, Jay Farrell? Hard to see. Maybe I'm a little bit scarred from an opposite home run I gave up to Kyle Tucker, a rather important one in the 2021 ALCS. Granted, it was Crawford boxes, but still. Quick question about free agency. Does the November 18th deadline restrict people to talk to them until... No, there's no restriction. It's just that the teams have realized that the longer they can, sort of run the clock out on the players individually, and there can be a large collection of players still unsigned, as closer they get to spring training, panic starts to set in and prices start to drop. So it's more of a strategy than they can't do it. I like teams that know what they want, they're convicted in what they want, and they go try to get that done, rather than try to play the we'll take whatever we can get in our value, projection, block. I don't like that approach, but people do that. All right, so Yankees definitely as a possible fit. Wow, they're saying 11 years. So I'm saying that's basically saying he's one of the top players in the entire world, and he is. They're projecting him for 11 years. I think it's a minimum of 7 to get him to age 35, but the odds are the cost of doing business is going to push them way past that. Do they have best fits? Cubs, Dodgers, Giants, they're saying here. Okay, so let's think about that for a second. Cubs, he just was with the Cubs. They could have probably offered him something pretty early. Cubs, Dodgers, Giants. Is that what that just said? Hold on. Man, Giants. So the Giants have been looking for power bats for a long time. They have one in Rafael Devers. Let's go look at depth charts. I need San Francisco Giants depth chart. All right, currently in the outfield, they're rocking Helio Ramos in left, Jung-Hoo Lee in center, and then a Drew Gilbert, sometimes in center, sometimes in right. They definitely have availability for him. Be curious to see how aggressive they are. Now, power plays a little bit differently in San Fran. The fact that the Cubs didn't pick up Shota's option, the Cubs have to make a legit play at Tucker, otherwise sell the team. I think they need to make a play at Tucker. I don't know about otherwise sell the team, but I don't know. I haven't followed the Cubs enough with their spending. I know it hasn't been maybe up to par with what the fans have been expecting. So there's also Bryce Eldridge, this guy, this big time rookie, this giant of a man who's coming up. I think the Giants will be in the market. I don't know if they ultimately get the player here. It's weird. We used to have like a pretty cool depth chart look that was like more of like showed the field. That's annoying. All right, now Cubs, we already know he fits like a glove in right field. And then they can play, you know, say a PCA and the other spots. Yankees, I think he fits good, but obviously he's a right fielder. So now you're worrying about where's Judge going to play. So it's going to be interesting to see how big the Yankees are going on him, because it's kind of a choice for the Yankees between him and Bellinger. Yeah, he could play left as well. All right, so anyway, here's Tuck. The numbers last year, 841 OPS. I mean, 993 the year before and only 339 at-bats. 886. I mean, he's been pretty consistently awesome. I know he had like a fracture that was undiagnosed that he played with for a while this year. So as good as these numbers look, they could have looked maybe even better. And he's 28 years old. Let's look up Belly for a sec. Because, not Ronnie Belliard. We need Cody Bellinger. Oh, man, now this machine's going to freak out. All right, so one thing I like about Bellinger, now he's older, he's 2 years older, 30 years old. But one thing I like about him is his versatility. We know he can play center, he can play first base. He pretty much slides in everywhere. He hit for a higher average than Tucker this year, but he's definitely a weaker overall offensive performer. And the age factor, I think Bellinger's market will be really big. I think it'll be a lot bigger than maybe Tucker's market in terms of how many teams are in on him. But I also think the number won't get as high. So Mets, Tigers, Yankees. I could see either of these. Now, his Mets status sort of plays in hand a little bit with what happens with our buddy Pete. Pete comes back. Obviously, there's no need for first base. Given that David Stearns really likes defensive value, I could see him targeting Bellinger because Bellinger can provide that in two different ways. I mean, you see the defensive value here. +7 range, outs above average this year. 3 on the arm value. So you're basically buying an all-around player who's not as good of a hitter as Kyle Tucker. If you want to compare these two, he's also a little bit older. So he's not going to get as much money. But again, if you had your pick and you're a Yankees fan or a team in a win-now cycle, which is the guy you would rather have a little bit more, I think that's a fair debate, at least. All right, I'm just checking up on him a little bit. So the speed has declined, obviously, since he was young, but it's still well above average. Outs above average has been outstanding his whole career. Arm strength's great. Walk percentage, it's interesting since the power numbers have dropped. This is something that's cool to look at, guys. Power, a lot of people don't realize, but power really, really, really drives walk rate. And when Cody was big-time scary power hitter at the beginning, he had an above-average walk rate because guys were scared out of the zone. But now it's not as good. It's still solid, but you can see guys aren't as scared. And it goes lockstep with the hard hit percentage, which is right next to it. You see the hard hits were all above average. The walks are right above average. When the hard hits dropped off, the walks dropped off. So pitchers monitor that stuff, and they know when they can attack you or not attack you. But power is not his only game. So you're not getting the MVP version of Cody Bellinger from a Dodger, and that's why he can't touch Kyle Tucker. And I don't think anybody else, frankly, touches him. So I'm going to go ahead, and we're going to make Kyle Tucker our number one as well. All right, now number 2, we're going to do about 20 of these. Our number 2 free agent, I think, is a little bit more debatable because it comes in with pitchers as well as hitters. So let's head back over to the big board and let's take a look really quick at the chat and see what people are coming out of that first little thing that we looked at. My wife, I thought you said death chart. No. So my question is to you guys, do you think that ballpark outweighs money? Because ultimately, I could live with having less home runs on my baseball reference page at the end of my career if I got paid more money and I was a part of a winning situation. I also think, oddly, I think the Vitello hiring, the Vitello-Posey combination is oddly exciting for players. I don't know, it's something different. So I could see the Giants being in regardless of the fact that it's not a great ballpark to hit home runs in. Dan saying no hitters ever signed with SF. I mean, Willie Adames just did. Obviously had a little bit of an up and down year. Rafi's over there. They're trying to build more of an offense than they've had before, which will be interesting to see if they can continue to add to that. I think his bat would be a perfect fit for the Yankees. How he would do in left field, though, I'm not sure. Left field, Yankee Stadium is really big. It's one of the bigger left fields. I think he's more of an arm value, likes to play a short porch, like in right field. Like you think about Houston, little low wall, he could rob homers, pretty short and right, so the arm plays. Same with Yankee Stadium, but that's also where Judge patrols, so that's a little bit of an issue. Other guys are saying that, other people in the chat are saying that he can, in fact, play left field. So that's a question for the Yankees a little bit. I also think the price could get out of control, which is crazy to say for the Yankees, but I think that could be the case. All right, what else we got? This is a comment about Bellinger. I prefer Bellinger in LA, but not sure if he get PTSD coming back, reliving his hitting struggles. I don't know. I think he still has a lot of friends with people over there. I mean, you know, he was there a long time. He was a part of a lot of great teams. I don't think that would be an issue. It's just a matter of if it's a fit or not. The fact that the Dodgers are able to go after Tucker as well is amazing. You think about throwing Tucker in that lineup with Shohei, Mookie, Freddie, etc. Teoscar, Will Smith, I mean, Kyle Tucker, it just would get even longer and scarier for pitchers. Belly had a better year, but fans consider him a tier behind Tucker and are fed up with Hal and Cashman not going for the A player. Yeah, I don't think the Yankees worry too much about the fan pressure part of it, but I do think that every now and then there's an opportunity to get a franchise-changing bat. Kyle Tucker might be that guy. He's also somewhat of an all-around player, although we did see some things declining a little bit. Do players actually get shit from other players / the PA for taking perceived below-market deals? Not really. Players generally understand that everybody has different, ideas of what to do. But, I mean, there are some players that take this stuff to heart a little bit more, and they definitely don't like to take, I don't know, they definitely think about the collective a little more than just themselves. But, I don't know, I've seen it go both ways. Is this a question about Bellinger? I've always thought Cody was really good in the outfield, personally. But all right, so let's get on and see who we're going to go to next. Oh, hold on. We have a little bit more here. So we're talking about the ballpark stuff here. Bregman partially picked Boston last year because of how he profiles the Fenway. Now, I think for Bregman, this is important, but it's not just important for him. It's important for the club. Bregman's pop is all pull side. All right, so Bregman's going to be in the mix for the number 2 free agent. He might get the highest average annual value of anybody. But go ahead and look at this spray chart right here for the home runs. Everything's dead pull. Now, somehow he has 4 balls the other way. 2 are pesky pull home runs, clearly. And he did drive 2 balls the other way. But Bregman has always been a straight-up pull hitter for power. I'm going to go through all the years. Here's 24. Here's 23. Here's 22. I mean, you see every single thing is pull side. Now, there's not a problem with that. A lot of guys, this is how they get it done, Go back to 19, which was his best year. Basically all pull. That's not to say it's a problem. A lot of the best players in the league do this. Nolan Arenado, when he was in his prime, it's all pull side homers. Mookie Betts, it's all pull side homers. But Bregman's a definite example of that, and he's played his whole career in which 2 ballparks? Houston and Boston, which are the 2 straightaway left field ballparks. Now, I know Detroit has been rumored to be in on Bregman for years. Obviously, there's the Hinch-Bregman combo, connection from Houston. But I don't like Detroit as a ballpark fit for him. I like it as a fit in terms of how he could elevate their organization. One thing I love about Bregman is how he elevates the clubhouse. He's one of the smartest players I've ever been around. He keeps the main thing, which is baseball. And how to beat the opponent. He's an absolute gamer. He had a huge impact on the Red Sox this year, similar to how Kyle Schwarber has had a huge impact on the Phillies. And with those 2 guys in particular, you wonder if the incumbent team, worries about what they bring to the clubhouse as well, and like the overall ethos of how they go through their process and try to beat the opposing team. Like those guys are a big part of those conversations on a daily basis. And if you lose that, you lose a big ingredient from your team. So I'll be curious to see how that works out. So in terms of the number 2 free agent, I'm not going to pick a pitcher here. I don't really think Valdez, Imai, Cease, King, any of these guys are really better free agents than these hitters. I think Bregman, Bellinger, and Bo Bichette are the next ones. So we looked at Belly, we looked at Bregman. Let's look at Bo for a second. Now Bo is a little bit different. 27, so he's really on the young side. So he's looking for potentially a very long deal. I do think he's genuine in his desire to potentially stay with Toronto. and be with Vladdy for the whole career. But this is funny. Free agency is brought to you by the letter B. There's a lot of B's. Bregman, Bo, Bichette, Bellinger. It's so true. But for me, Bo Bichette is not a shortstop anymore. This is a little bit of an issue. Check out the range here on the outs above average. I'm curious how that's progressed over his career. So he actually, even though he didn't get enough innings, he trended a little better in 24, but this year he was literally the worst defensive shortstop in the league in terms of outs above average. I don't know. He's a very peculiar player to break down because the results are really good. It's a contact game, right? 99th percentile expected batting average this year. He hit 311 with an 840 OPS. He did have that miserable year the prior year, 225 with the 600 OPS. But it's an interesting profile because do you believe in it long term when you've already seen some physical decline? Do you move him off shortstop and then maybe that mitigates some of the defensive issues? But I do think every team could use a Bo Bichette in their lineup. I know it's not a 950 OPS and big pop, but it's a huge batting average. And it's a tough at bat. We saw it in the World Series when he came back playing on basically one knee. He's got a great two-strike approach. So, I think a lot of teams will be in on Bo. They're going to like the age. It's just going to be a matter of where the price gets to. And I do think there's a sentimental value a little bit on him potentially staying with the Blue Jays. Seems like the Jays fans are pretty gung-ho on their chances. Bo's batting profile reminds me of Javi Baez in like 2018 or 2019. Yeah, he's got too much chase. No doubt about that. How's that progressed over his career? Has he always had too much chase? Yeah, he's always had too much chase. So it's interesting. You look at a guy like PCA or Javi Baez, their chase nuked their entire effectiveness. That hasn't been the case for him. His expected batting average and expected on base have basically been good his whole career, especially that expected batting average. So the overall amount of chase hasn't really affected him, and I'm wondering if that chase is a little bit of a fake stat because sometimes when you're in a two-strike approach and you're spreading out and you're fouling balls off that are a little bit off the plate, that's going to negatively impact your chase rate, but you're doing a good thing. You're seeing more pitches. You're basically telling the pitcher he can't beat you, and a lot of times seeing those pitches ends up getting you a good pitch to hit, and then you do some damage. So I think it's you can't just look at these metrics and think that they're all apples to apples. I think this is an apples to oranges comparison between a guy like Javier Baez or a PCA who has too much chase and they strike out too much because of it. He's not really that way. With all that chase, he's still 86th percentile in K rate. So, I don't know. I like Bo a lot. I don't like him defensively. And that's what drags him down a little bit for me. So, for me, I actually think I have Bregman as my number 2 free agent. I know that there's the concerns with Bregman. I get it. Sprint speed, showing a little bit of a physical decline. But I believe in this guy's ability to outwork whatever's going wrong with him. And I actually think he's going to end up having a pretty good bit of longevity in his career, despite the fact that he's smaller in stature and some of his physical abilities probably won't age perfectly. I think his process is so good that he'll remain a very good, productive player, and I love him on defense. So I'm going to go with Alex Bregman as my number 2 free agent. This is just my list, And now I think it gets a little bit more in the weeds between the pitchers and the wow, nice writing by Ottavino here. Between the pitchers and who's next on the list. So we still have Belly, Bo. Let me go back to the list again. Who else is in the mix in this top spots? Schwarber, Bo, Belly, Pete, Cease, and then we start to get into some of the guys a little bit further down the list. And Framber. Okay, so Framber's an interesting one because for me, Framber Valdez, who they have as the number 2 free agent here on ESPN, they're projecting 6-year contract for him. The thing I love about Framber is his consistency. So let's take a quick moment to take a peek at Framber and Schwarber, and then we'll think where we have these guys lined up. I do believe, based on rankings, Framber should be the number 1 pitcher, but I have Imai. For me, I have him ahead of Cease, but we'll get into that in a minute. All right, so another ho-hum year from Framber. .366 and 31 starts, 192 innings, 187 strikeouts, 1.24 WHIP. It's actually one of his worst years in his career, but still quite solid. 3.8 WAR is solid. Go look at this body of work from Framber Valdez the last 4 years: 200 innings, 198 innings, 176 innings, 192 innings. So you're getting a workhorse. I know that there was the catcher incident, which has been noticed a little bit. As I don't think he has the best reputation. Not that I know anything about it personally, but you hear some whispers, and then obviously that catcher, crossing up your catcher, which looked on purpose, and if it wasn't on purpose, he definitely showed no remorse about the situation. But it's undeniable that he's been pretty dang consistent. Really, since 2021, what are we looking at cumulatively? This is the last 5 years. 3.20 ERA, hasn't really been hurt, averaging 4.1 WAR per 162, 28% above league average. I think Framber, to me, is still comfortably my number 2 free agent. Now, I don't know where he's going to go. I think everybody around the league could potentially be in on him, depending on how much money they have to spend. But dominant lefties like this guy don't really come around too often, and it's all driven by this ground ball rate. The ground ball rate being at the very, very tippy top of the scale is going to allow him to go deep into games. It's going to allow him to continue to be efficient. And ultimately, that's his superpower besides his curveball, which is also an excellent pitch. What do you get the most value out of this year is that sinker. Curveball wasn't as effective this year, which is interesting, but that doesn't spook me much. Still at a 43% whiff rate on the curve. And that's what's funny too, is like what I was talking about, not everything's apples to apples. Like when you're a ground ball pitcher, like Framber is, big time ground ball specialist, these numbers are going to look bad. Exit velocity and hard hit. That's because ground balls are typically hit very hard. So that's going to hurt your hard hit percentage and your exit velocity, but it's not going to hurt your effectiveness. They're going to be mostly at people. You're going to get 1 or 2 pitch outs, and it's more of a contact profile. I don't really see too much of a decline. Fastball velocity's held up pretty good. Whiff percentage is great. Walk percentage this year was a little bit uncharacteristic for him, but nothing crazy. And now he's learning how to get more chase. 68% chase rate. That's a good thing to learn as you continue on into your career. So I'm comfortable with putting Framber right here in my number 3 spot. And then we've already looked at these others. I am going to put Bo Bichette number 4 because of his age. And I think that his profile is a little more unique relative to the league, whereas I think we might be coming back into every lineup having to have a little bit more contact. So I think Bo, oddly, he fits a lot of lineups because his hitting style is a little different. And then I'm going to go with Cody Bellinger right here at number 5. And I just love his versatility. I think he fits with a lot of clubs. I think he's a big-time get for everybody. And yeah, all of my top 3 are former Astros, which just goes to show you how much talent that club was dealing with throughout that time period. I mean, it's crazy. You throw in, Altuve and Correa into the mix. Springer. I mean, it's just a ridiculous amount of talent. All right, quick break for the chat, and then we'll move on to our next batch. What are my thoughts on Bieber opting with the Jays? I am stunned by this. When that happened, I could not believe it. I thought he was poised to get a 4 or 5 year deal on the market. He's a former Cy Young Award winner, although it was the Mickey Mouse year, but former Cy Young Award winner with a really good track record, with a brand new elbow, who just showed pretty well in the postseason, not only health-wise, but results-wise. And I get it. I get it. Like, he had a great experience in Toronto. They went all the way to the end, and maybe they loved it and they loved everything that they were a part of, and he's going to go ahead and bet on himself in a way, but I don't know. This was a little weird to me. He has no qualifying offer attached to him because he got traded. So I felt like the market was going to be wide open for Bieber to do well. And I'm just shocked by this. I don't really have any explanation for it. I don't think he was injured or anything like that. I think just they got swept up in wanting to be there. And that's okay. you're allowed to make that decision. I think that's what's the beautiful thing about free agency. You can make the decision that matters for you. And there's times in my career where I might have done something similar as well, where you just have such a good, you have such a good, experience somewhere that, it makes you want to stick around. All right. Some more talk about Framber. So I don't think he's a fit, obviously, for the Rockies. He's not going to go there. They're not going to pay him. But also, this is just something important to note. Like, ground balls are great in theory at cores, but your sinker will be affected, your sinker shape a little bit. So if you're fully relying on some sort of outlier sinker shape, it's tough because that will be somewhat muted. And then a little talk about Bo's two-strike approach. I mean, it's beautiful. It's a thing of beauty. It's something that I love. I love guys who have multiple approaches. It's hard to face. And as a pitcher, we don't want to face guys that make it difficult on us. Bo Bichette's one of those guys. I had good numbers against him somehow, but I never felt comfortable, actually probably less comfortable with two strikes, oddly, than when he was swinging big before that. At least I can work around that big hack, but that two-strike approach, it's tough to get that ball by him. Yeah, and Ken said no extension on Bieber, so that's why it was super. People assumed, like Blue Jays baseball, that he was getting that extension, but nothing like that has been announced. So it's kind of weird. I don't think it's something that like he'll get in trouble with the PA over, but I think the PA would be like, what's the thought process here? Ultimately, it's always up to the player, but I don't know. It's interesting. All right. Let's see who else we got here. So I think the next one is really a battle between Schwarber and Polar Pete. I think that's probably my next two guys I want to look at. And then after that, we'll get into the Imai versus Cease versus Michael King conversation, which for me is probably next, although I'm taking a quick peek. Ranger Suarez. Oh, I also like Zach Gallen. Okay. All right. Pete versus Kyle. Kyle Schwarber versus Pete. Just out of curiosity, what are they projecting here on ESPN? 4-year deal for Schwarb, big money. 4-year deal for Pete's, big money, but slightly less. Schwarber a lefty, Pete's a righty. This is a fascinating showdown. I love both of these guys dearly. They're both awesome friends, awesome teammates. They both have incredible power that you just don't find. It's literally the rarest thing on earth. But I mean, these are two of the absolute best power hitters. And I'm actually pretty excited for both of them for this free agency. But honestly, like, particularly for Kyle, he's never entered free agency, I think, valued as high as he is right now. Somehow he's still only 32 years old, even though he's been around for an absolute dog's age. Let's see when he debuted. Kyle from Waltham. Debuted in 2015 at age 22. So yeah, 10 years into this thing, and he just put up the biggest WAR number of his career. Now, his WAR is always going to look a little lower because he provides no defensive value, plays a ton of DH. But, I mean, just look at the last 4 years for the Phillies in terms of home runs. 46, 47, 38, 56. That's incredible. So the bat is peaking right now, and I think it'll show up a little bit when we look at the metrics here about how he's been trending over the past few years. I'm going to go ahead and look at that chart over the past few years. Now, you can see he's been spectacular his whole career. But what has allowed him to really go to the next level the last few years is a couple things. Number one, his swing got a bit shorter. It was one of the longest in the game, and now it's 28th percentile, but it's not quite at the very end. But the biggest thing is the chase rate improving over time. That's been noted in the chat as well. But he's now in the elite level. Over the last 2 years, 93rd percentile and 90th percentile in terms of chase rate. So now you gotta beat him in the strike zone. And when you have to beat Kyle Schwarber in the strike zone, you might 5th percentile in whiff, he might miss you. But to get him to miss 3 times a row in the strike zone is very dangerous, considering he hits the ball as hard as anybody, and he's done that his whole career. 98th percentile exit velocity, 100th percentile hard hit rate this year, 99th percentile in barrels. He's basically just swings with an absolute vicious cut. He covers fastballs really well. Four-seam, look at his value on four-seamers this year. It's a no-fly zone. You think you're going to get ahead of him with a fastball? Good freaking luck. 28 positive run value versus the four-seamer and 13 versus the sinker. To make measures, just to keep you honest, he also hits the changeup and the cutter. So I'm a big fan of Kyle. I think that some of the teams that have had him around, aka the Red Sox, aka the Phillies, are going to really value him a little more because of just how great he is, not only in the batter's box, how he changes your entire lineup, but also in the clubhouse. And then for my guy Pete on the other side. Now, Pete, obviously we talked to him on Monday. It was a cool show talking with Pete about his process. Pete's in a similar boat as a player to Kyle. He's 2 years younger, still playing a lot of first base, providing very little defensive value at this point. That has certainly declined. Probably more of a DH type going first. Will he be willing to DH? I don't think so. Knowing Pete, I think he wants to stay at first as long as possible. I think he has the Hall of Fame in his sights, and it's pretty hard to get into the Hall of Fame. Pretty hard to get in the Hall of Fame if you just DH. There's only a few examples. Big Papi, obviously Edgar Martinez, but not a whole lot. So I think Pete wants to stay at first as much as he possibly can. Anyway, here's the situation for Pete. And I think if you're looking to understand why his market might be a little better this year than last year, you got to go no further than the process stats, where he improved pretty much across the board. Now, we talked about this a little bit the other day, but the hard hit percentage, 96th percentile, up from a career high. Best before that was 81. Exit velocity, 97th percentile, which means he was hitting the ball harder more consistently. Now, I think what I tried to dig into with Pete the other day was two major changes that I noticed in his swing that have allowed him to do this and basically not have as many empty at-bats where he swings at a bad pitch or takes a bad swing and just gets beat. Swing length. I just talked about it with Kyle. The shorter your swing can be while maintaining a high level of bat speed, the better. You're going to be able to see the ball deeper before making swing decisions. That's going to lend yourself to better chase rate. It's also going to allow you to hit the pitchers with the higher velocities. There's so many applications for the combination of above average swing speed, but above average swing length, meaning shorter swing. Pete made his swing a little bit shorter this year, paid huge dividends, particularly with just how consistently he was able to square up the ball. Right, he's still the same player, although he runs a lower whiff rate than Kyle in the zone. He also has a little bit more of a chase rate. If this is the main key, last 3 years chase rate's been above league average. If Pete can continue this trend and continue to be above league average and maybe even push himself into the elite category in terms of chase rate, then he can catch Kyle in terms of overall effectiveness at the plate. He's right behind him, but that's the one, probably the one metric that he's a little bit lacking behind in terms of Kyle. The thing he has going for him is the age. So it basically comes down to left-handed pop versus right-handed pop. I think left-handed pop is generally more valued on the market. So, hey, what are you looking at? You're looking at this one random year in 21 where he had 83 outs above average, Maya? Yeah, I don't know what went into that either. It's right here. It's hidden in a sea of poor defense. He had 1 year with 83 outs above average. So I don't know. I'd love to ask Pete actually what he did differently that year, why he thinks he graded differently. So anyway, I think I have Kyle a little bit ahead of him, but it's pretty close. I don't know. I want to see a couple Kyle Schwarber nukes. Is this when he hit the 4 dingers? You can see the swing is very short now. Kyle's always fun to watch the absolute bombs he hits. You can watch some of Pete's too. Oh, here's a Coors Field nuke. Yeah, I mean, in theory, Pete could get a longer deal because of his age. I think teams might be willing to go maybe a little longer because of age. But I think a big thing with Pete is whoever signs him is going to have to actually understand whether he's willing to move to DH at some point or not. At the end of the day, they need a little bit of an assurance that they're not just going to be stuck with somebody if they feel like they can't, they're not going to leave first base at all. So I think that's a big important part of the conversation. And I think if he's just, even if he lied about it, if I was him, I'd be telling teams, yeah, sure, I'll DH. And then maybe I cause a stink later and just try to pigeonhole them into giving me the money before I have to make that decision if it's something I don't want to do. All right, let's watch Pete hit some nukes now. Some of these are way back. So, yeah, these are the two big power hitters of the thing. The other guys that are ahead of these guys, they're ahead of them because they're a little bit more all-around type players. These guys, they're maybe a little bit of a one-trick pony in terms of like they're just offensive contributors, but it's the most important thing. They change your entire lineup having a power guy like this in the lineup. So, I don't know. I think Phillies, Mets, certainly the Red Sox are teams that could be in on these guys. Who just made a comment about something about middle order bat? It was the Red Sox. I think the Red Sox have a big incentive. I think the Red Sox have a big incentive to sign one of the big two power guys, whether it's Pete or Kyle. Now, the Red Sox are quite left-handed, actually. So when we're thinking about Red Sox fit for Pete or Kyle, it's a little bit of an issue because they're very left-handed. Red Sox depth chart. So, okay, so Casas, if he's there, or Nathaniel Lowe, those guys both bat left-handed. Sadon, he's a righty. Romy's a righty, but they want those guys to be they want Romy to be a complementary player. And then Marcelo Meyer is a lefty. Story's a righty, but Duran, Anthony, Yoshida all left-handed. And then Abreu as well. So that's kind of the crux of this situation. Anthony, Yoshida, Meyer, Duran, Abreu, all left-handed. You add Schwarber to that, I'm not 100% sure that that's as clean a fit as the right-handed pop would be in Pete. So in a way, I kind of like the Pete fit with the Red Sox. I'm not sure how they'll value him. And I think his wife is from Boston as well, so that might potentially be a fit if he doesn't end up back with the Mets. But all right, I'm gonna give Kyle the nod here because I think the left-handed power is a little more useful overall throughout the game. But these guys are basically attached to the hip for me. These are the 6th and 7th best free agents in my mind. And now after that, I think it's a couple of pitchers. Let me just double check on that. Let me delete a couple of these pages. We can debate a couple of the pitchers because I think it's very interesting how people see these pitchers ranked. So it's Dylan Cease. I'm not going to put Murakami over any of these pitchers right here. I think he's got too much swing and miss in his game. He's too risky. I think he'll make my top 20, but I don't have him this high. So Cease, Kinger, Imai, and Framber, and then there's Edwin. So Edwin's clearly the top reliever, but Ranger, oh yeah, and then Gallen as well. Gallen, King. All right, we need to pull up some pages. All right, so we'll start with Michael King, who I have a feeling I'm going to be a lot higher on Kinger than other people are, but we'll see. Cease. Then we need to pull up Ranger. Ranger's an interesting one because his velocity's been trending down, but his skill has been trending up. And then Zach Gallen. Does Fenway kill Pete's Oppo power? No stadium kills Pete's Oppo power. Ever. But I mean, a little bit because it's really big. But overall, I don't think it's a factor. Pete's got so much raw Oppo power. He's like one of the few guys that can really make it work. Also, you think about JD Martinez and how his bat played at Fenway. It was perfectly fine. He's an Oppo guy. So, yeah. We're going to talk a little bit more about Murakami in a bit when I get to him. We went over international guys the other day. I mean, he's a tantalizing package of tools like power and stuff like that. But, man, there's so much swing and miss and uncertainty about him versus the top guys. All right, so Zach Gallen versus Ranger Suarez versus Dylan Cease versus Michael King versus Tatsuya Imai, who we already looked at the other day. All right, so King had a lost season this year. Only made 15 starts. Had a pair of injuries. Did come back in the postseason and pitched a little bit. But I encourage you to look at how good he was the previous year. He's also coming in at a nice age, 30 years old. 31 starts the previous year, 173 and 2/3 with a 2.95. Also dominated the Braves in his playoff start. I love Michael King because I love his pitch mix. It's a it's a dandy of a pitch mix. He has the ability to throw an elite four-seam shape and an above-average sinker shape. So to me, I'm tempted to put Michael King way up high. I have him above Dylan Cease. So, and this is partly why. I'm going to explain it right now. It's more about how they get their outs and how that's going to evolve as time goes on, and what I think, which pitcher I think can deal with a decline in velocity easier. East-West pitchers, I think, can handle a little bit of a velocity decline a little bit easier. And Kinger's velo was down a little bit this year, but his pitch plot is very useful for an East-West game. There's a lot of contact managing going on, as well as strikeout game. And in the 2 years prior to this year, which I have a hard time really looking at this year too strongly. He's still the same guy if he's healthy. You see these numbers. These are very impressive for starters. 79th percentile and 68th percentile in xwOBA is very impressive. And it's a combination of everything. He limits contact at an elite level. 88th, 99th, and 84th the last 3 seasons respectively on hard hits. So they don't hit him very hard, but he's also getting strikeouts. So weak contact plus strikeouts, I love that. Walk rate, nothing scary about it, nothing red flag about it. Chase rate, it's not great, but it's hard with East-West profiles. I think he's better than most. And then you see, the fastball velocity has trended down. This is a little bit of a concern, but I think 30 is too young to say, oh, it can't come back. I think he can easily pop back up into above average here. He's a great athlete. He's going to train hard. So I don't know. I'm very high on Michael King, but in comparison to Cease, a lot of it is the pitch mix stuff, right? So this is a wide East-West mix, and here's Dylan Cease. It's a north-south game, very reliant on velocity. Hasn't been able to evolve his game too much further to this point. Now, he's tried. You see all this 41% four-seam, 41% slider, and then he's trying really hard to mix in curveball, sinker, sweeper, change. Like, he's trying to find a way to expand his game, but at the end of the day, he's still 82% one pitch or the other, which to me is a little bit of a red flag overall. And you can see it a little bit in his inconsistency of, bottom line run prevention the last few years. 4.58 in 23, 3.47 in the bounce back in 24, and then 4.55 this year. Now, in all those years, it's not like he's not striking guys out. He's punching tickets. He's doing a lot of things really well. And the numbers bear that out. Above average in xwOBA every year. I just worry about his ability to control contact and to evolve his game a couple years into this deal. Clearly, because of his age and his strikeout potential and probably his stuff plus rankings, like, and where he fits into, like, he's only 29, where he fits in terms of the pitch modeling, there's going to be a lot of algorithms that are going to spit him back as like a much better target than these other guys. But me personally, I would shy away from giving Cease the big deal relative to actually all 3 of these other pitchers who I think are a little bit more dynamic and well-rounded. Not that I don't like Cease, but I worry about signing him at this moment where he has all the leverage where he can push for a really long deal. That would be my overall concern. I just think there's not as much contact managing in his game as need be. I mean, you can see even in some of his good years, the exit velocity is too high, and it's not like it's a ground ball rate. He doesn't have hardly any ground ball rate, right? Where's the ground ball rate? Don't even see it there, but it's not part of his game. He's a fly ball pitcher. Yeah, ground ball 24th percentile this year. So I don't know. I'm a little down on it. It's the combination of fly ball profile, hasn't evolved his contact game yet. Too many walks. You can't strike everybody out. You can't get 3 whiffs all the time. So I'm tempted to rank him actually a little bit lower than these other guys. Now, Gallen and Suarez and Imai are the other 3 that I'm talking about. I think Imai, we talked about a lot in the free agency. I'm a big fan of him. I don't know what the ultimate price will be, but I'm a big believer in Imai, mostly because he looks like a tremendous athlete, pitches with an edge. He's got incredible velocity. He's got a weird-shaped slider. His chase rates were exceptional in Japan, but I also think that because of his slot being a little bit lower, there's opportunity for him to add a lot of East-West to his game that maybe he doesn't have yet. And I think a good pitching development organization can quickly transition Imai into basically a 5 or 6 pitch monster. Whereas Cease, it's tougher. The high arm release, the high arm angle, 51 degrees, it's just tougher to work things out of that. It's tough to figure that out. He doesn't have like a lockdown splitter, like a Savage or somebody else. So it's just this 4-seam slider, and it's hard to create east-west action out of that slot, and that's what scares me a little bit. All right, Ranger Suarez. So Ranger Suarez is one of my personal favorite pitchers, but what's been intriguing about Ranger Suarez is that you see the numbers got better each of the last 3 years. He went from a 4.18 to a 3.46 to a 3.2 in 157 innings this year. However, the velocity has trended down the last few years. If we go by fastball velocity, it's going way, way low now. He's down to 7th percentile fastball velocity. So you got to wonder, how low can it go? We saw Clayton Kershaw be pretty effective, being in the low 90s, but you can't get into the 80s and still have any level of success in the big leagues typically. And he's getting pretty damn close. 90.1 miles an hour on the sinker this year is frankly a little bit scary. So that's a little bit frightening for me. I need to know a little bit more about his health status. 91.3 on the 4-seam. I just feel like he's thrown a lot of innings. He's done a good job soaking him up. But, man, I don't know. Like, do you believe in him more than Cease? Like, I actually think this is where maybe the line gets drawn, and maybe Cease is a little bit of a better option here, because I don't have a lot of reliability that Suarez is going to remain physically as good moving forward. So that makes me a little nervous. Got a lot of people that are in the chat actually supporting Ranger Suarez. I saw in my Discord as well when we did a vote the other day, and I didn't include Ranger Suarez. A lot of people fired their opinion in for Ranger. I do think he's got some of the best command in the game. So that tends to play at a lower speed, and that's important. But he also really hasn't gotten 200 innings either. So he has an innings-eating profile in terms of the way he gets it done. Big ground ball rate, low weak contact, great command, albeit with a low whiff percentage. So I don't know. It hasn't hurt him yet, but I'd be hesitant a little bit because of like, if he's 88, 89, I think that's a little bit sketchy. I don't know. I think he's a great pitcher, but I'd be a little afraid of him for a long-term deal. So I'm gonna put him probably at the bottom of these 4 guys plus Imai, and then there's Zach Gallen. Now Zach Gallen had a bad year this year, no way around it results-wise. 4.83, but it was more of the same. He made all his starts, 192 innings, only a 1.26 WHIP, which isn't bad. And honestly, I love Zach Gallen as a pitcher. He combines above-average stuff with an above-average level of command. Arizona's not the easiest place to pitch in the world. I don't really think he was as bad. I don't really worry about him going forward as much. This is a little bit of a trend from his first 4 years. Doesn't look as strong, but I don't know. When I watched him pitch this year, I didn't see a huge fall off. I just felt like he was getting hit a little bit, but I feel like that happens sometimes, and I think he might be a little undervalued. What's Zach Gallen's age right now? 30. 30 right now. Let me look at his reference for a second. The innings have been good. So he's been throwing more innings than Ranger. I feel pretty good about that. The velocity's held a little bit better than Ranger. However, the ERA obviously went way backed up. I think smart teams are still going to be in on him and still going to value him really high. It's just a matter of how many teams do that. I mean, it's not a bad season. It's not a great season, but it's on the edge of being good. It's probably a couple blow up games, and he could have got back into respectability. I mean, he's still less than 1 hit per 9, 176, 192 innings, 3.1 walks, 8.2 strikeouts. So the strikeouts came down. That's a little bit of a concern. What did he do differently this year? Was he just having a hard time getting ahead? Where's his first pitch strikes? No, first pitch strikes were better than ever this year. This is super weird. Whiff rate definitely lower than the last 2. Velo's declining as well, but it's just not as low as Ranger. I don't know. I still like him more than Suarez for whatever reason. And then Amai, I like better than a bunch of these dudes. Also has a QO. Yeah, it says who are all the people with the QOs? Let's look that up. Qualifying offer MLB. 13 players got it this year. Here are the 13. Schwarber, Tucker, Suarez, Framber, Cease. I'm looking at the pitchers. Edwin, Woodruff, Gallen, Imanaga. You know, it might be worth it for Gallen to take it. I don't know if he will, but it might be worth it for him to take it because then he could go ahead and rebuild his value and then come back out the other side. Does Imai get more of a boost because he does not have that QA? Yeah, but the thing about it is Imai does have is he has the posting fee. So you're going to have to pay a percentage of his contract anyway. So it's kind of like having a QO in that there's another thing dragging you down. You're not like losing a draft pick, but you have to spend more additional money moving forward. So these are all, I have all these guys as the next group, you know, and then after that, we can think about where Edwin actually, maybe Edwin comes in maybe a little bit above one of these guys. I don't know. Tough to say. All right, so Kinger, Cease, Suarez, Imai, and Ranger, and Zach Gallen. All right, I'm going to go ahead and rank them. I've got my guy Tatsuya Imai as the number one of this group. Personally, I just think age, overall package, I love what he's bringing to the table. I think he's going to be an absolute stud. I really do. After watching his video, I'm big on him. Then I have Michael King. And then the question is between Gallen, Cease, and Suarez. I think it's still fair to probably have Cease in this spot. The upside's still better for him than the others. If Cease can find a way to add something to him, he's still throwing 97 miles an hour. If he can find a way to add a little bit more to his game, I think he can separate himself from these other dudes. And then I have Gallen ahead of Ranger Suarez. I'm just scared to death. I love Ranger Suarez, and I still have him in my top 12 free agents, obviously. But I'm just scared to death of that velocity drop, and I think he can't really afford to lose much more. There's not a lot of precedent for pitchers, no matter how good they are command-wise, in the modern game, to dip below 90. We saw what happened with like Madison Bumgarner when he started to dip below a certain level. All right, let me get over here in the chat for a bit. Amai got that Savage slider. It's a different angle, but it is the backup slider, and I love that. And we looked a lot at Tetsuya Yamai. I mean, he's disgusting, man. I like him a lot. I think he's going to be awesome. No, I don't think the posting fee money goes into the CBT tax. So they're all different levels of like pain to inflict on a team for signing a free agent. But I think ultimately they both have a little more consequences than just the money. Like if you have no QO or no posting fee, that's a lot cleaner. But both of those, you know, have a little bit of something attached to it. The posting money doesn't get lumped into salary for CBT. That's correct. Who goes first off the board? It's going to be one of these Japanese guys because there's a clock ticking. There's a clock ticking right now. Like Munetaka Murakami is already out there. He's got, what, 50 days to sign? So I think the Japanese guys might be the first ones off the market. And then, you know, everybody be waiting on Tucker at this point. And then, you know, the starting pitching market will be waiting on whoever's the top guy, whether it's Framber or if it does end up being a Cease or an Amai. I think those guys are going to go quick. And then after that, it all kind of falls in line. Now, I have Edwin Diaz probably as my next guy because he's the clear number one relief pitcher. Let me delete some of these. But let's see who else is in the mix for this spot. Murakami, Edwin, and then it gets a little hairy. Okamoto, Naylor, Suarez. What is ESPN saying? Murakami, Grisham, Grisham's tough with the QO. I think Grisham's market gets totally depressed with the QO. So yes, Dan, I do think Grisham will regret turning down the QO in a way. I think he should have stayed with the Yanks, a place he's comfortable, a place he played well, get that $20 million locked in. I know he's thinking this is my one shot at the multi-year, maybe like a $45-50 million deal, but I think that QO is gonna literally drag him down for a long time this offseason. It's gonna be interesting to see, but we've seen it before, and I think we'll see it again here. All right, so Edwin, Glaber, Naylor. I like Naylor a lot. I think Devin Williams is a sneaky guy. Shota, Okamoto, Merrill Kelly, Bassett, Giolito, Realmuto, Ozuna. Okay, so Diaz and Devin Williams are probably the top two relievers on the market, in my opinion. And then we got to look at like a Naylor, Glaber, Torres, Murakami group of people. Now it's interesting. Naylor versus Murakami is an interesting showdown. All right, let's take a look at Sugar for a sec. So Sugar has the QO, and I think that hurts his market a little bit as well. But there's no denying that he had another spectacular year. 0.87 whip, 1.63 ERA, 62 games, another 98 punch-outs. One thing that's underrated about Edwin, and I've wanted to point it out for a while, is how durable he's been. In a world in which people are not durable at all on the pitcher's mound, and especially late-inning relievers, Edwin is the opposite of that. I know he had the one freak knee injury, but look at this consistency. 66 games, 66 games in 17, 73 and 28. 18. In 19, another 66. This was the short year. That's still a lot, almost half the games in the shortened season. Then 63 and 21, 61 and 22. And then they intentionally lowered his workload coming back from the knee injury to 54, but he was strong the whole year. And then 62 this year. So as long as you're over 60, that's doing a full workload for a season, and he's done that. And on top of that, he's got the added bonus of, he's closed in the pressure of New York. He's bounced back from bad seasons. All the metrics are still pretty damn good. Look at this sea of red for Edwin. Fastball velocity, it's not what it used to be, but it's still quite good at 89th percentile. Even the walk rate, 8.1, not bad. Let me go look at him for his career. Literally 99th percentile-ish or 100th his whole career for strikeouts and whiffs. That's never going to change. So everything's basically the same. Got hit a little bit harder this year, but not much. This is the only trend right here is the fastball velocity, 89. Now, this is the big issue with Edwin. I think it's a very safe bet that he will be equally as dominant for at least 3 more years. After that, it's just impossible to project. You throw another 200 games onto him, how's he gonna look? But I think it's gonna take at least a 4-year deal to get this thing done. So you are stretching a little bit years-wise, as he's not as young as he was the first time through agency, but he's still only 31. Ultimately, I think some team does go to 4 or 5 years. It's probably going to be the Mets, but who knows? Now, there is one major weakness with Edwin, and I can relate to this. But this is a major glaring weakness. Stolen bases. -16 net bases prevented in 24 and -13 this year. That's probably worse than the league. Let's go look at the leaderboard. Edward Cabrera is a starter. Mike Vassell. Okay. Sandy's a starter, and then Edwin. So among relievers, Mike Vassell, who was kind of a long reliever this year, I believe at times, and Edwin Diaz are far and away the worst at holding runners. That's a little bit of a concern. Can he get better at that? And will that continue to be exposed over the next few years and kind of mute his overall, bottom line effectiveness a little bit? I think it's a fair question. I certainly dealt with it during my career. But ever since the rule change, you can see people are just not afraid to run. This is stolen base attempt percentage by year. It's all here in the 2s and the 1s. And then look, as soon as the rule changed, 6.9% and 5.4 this year. That means they are off to the races when anybody gets on base. They were able to get 5 caught stealings, but that was because Luis Torrens was the number one, throwing value catcher in the league. So you got to pair Edwin with a good catcher, or you're asking for trouble, and it's going to suck because he's going to have some games where he gives up a run without ever giving up a hit. Anyway, I think he's my #1 reliever, but I think it's fair to also at this moment go ahead and take a peek at Devin Williams. Now, Devin Williams had a weird year this year. Started off awful in terms of results, and even there was another portion of the year where he struggled as well, and it all equated to a very uncharacteristic 4.79. But 1.13 WHIP, 90 strikeouts. You look at the overall underlying metrics, and I think teams are definitely looking to get a bargain on this guy. Like, he was trending towards being like a 75, 85, $100 million relief pitcher, but this year, I saw some projections for him that were more like 3 for 30, 3 for 35, like something like that. To me, some teams that's smart is going to still give this guy like $50 million and at least sign him for 3 or 4 years. And to me, he's still super high end. I didn't see a lot of his metrics really change this year overall. He got clipped a little bit more with some barrels on some pulled changeups. Ultimately, I don't think his lack of success is sustainable. I think he's too good. I really do. I think he's too good. And even this year, this is about as bad as he could possibly pitch in terms of luck and in terms of mistakes in the zone. And yet he's still 85th percentile in expected an xWOBA, 96th in expected batting average, 93rd in expected slug. I mean, 85th in hard hit, 97th in K, 99th in whiff, 97th in chase. Fastball velocity has remained basically the same. There's no red flags in terms of health anymore. He's kind of overcome a lot of that stuff. I think Devin Williams is right there. I wouldn't be totally surprised if he got as much as Edwin is. I know that's crazy to say, but I don't think it's all that different. I think he's going to get maybe close to 13 million or more average annual value. So I think those two are awfully tight in terms of this. In terms of this race between these two relief pitchers. All right, was Devin's year impacted by the Yankees defense? Not as much. He just pulled a lot of. He just got clipped by a lot of changeups. Actually, we can go ahead and look at that real quick. This will be fun. All right, so let's go to visuals, and then there's an easy way to do this here. Player comparison visuals, and we need a Devin Williams. And then what you do is you go to spray chart, and then you go by quality of contact barrels. And these are the barrels from this season. These are all the barrels. So let's watch them, and you're going to see that most of them are pulled airbenders down and into lefties. It's just a poor location that he continually made. Right? There's one. Airbender. Just doesn't get it away. Ends up being middle in. And Josh Lowe deposits that one. So that's the first example. Here's Jock Peterson. Let's see where this pitch is. Pull changeup down in. So really, he just had a situation where he missed in the same location with like the pitch that can be hit off of him too many times. Like, this is his gift, is the airbender, but it's also his curse, because when he makes a mistake with it, it's the hittable pitch. It's slower. Guys are sitting on it more now. Now, this one was up and away. This is actually a surprising home run. A little bit, but let me watch this one again. Still up in the zone. Still not located where he wants it. He wants everything down and away. That's up and away, so we've just seen a few mistakes with changeups, basically. Let's see what this one is. It's also a changeup. Yohan Moncada. Same location again. 83 down in. So we're talking about more of a command issue here than anything else. The changeup's still the same pitch. The shape's still there. No, I didn't want that. I wanted Fangraphs for a second. Let me go look at his Stuff Plus and see if there's been any actual change. I mean, not really. By the Stuff Plus metric, the fastball's still, slightly above average at 103, and the changeup's still 25% above league average. The same value he had in 2022 when he was dominant. 2023, it's better than that. And yeah, 2024, it went a little bit higher, but you get the idea. Changeup's one of the best pitches in the game. His overall Stuff Plus is tremendous. 114. He actually got credit for good location, but we saw some of the mistakes he made. So I don't think free agents, I don't think front offices are going to even give one crap about his results last year. I think most of it's going to be, they still believe in the overall package of the player. And that's why I do think it's an interesting showdown between him and Sugar here. There's another home run on a changeup. So these barrels are all just mistake changeups in the zone. Pretty much every time. But I like the fact that his fastball velocity didn't trend down at all. And overall, I like the fact that, you know, most of his underlying metrics stayed strong. So Edwin and Devin, that's the showdown. You got to put Edwin ahead of him, so he's going to be my number 13. Edwin Sugar Diaz. And then I'm actually going to put Devin Williams right here at number 14. I know that that is crazy, but I really believe in the value of the ace reliever. I think that in terms of, you know, if you bring an ace reliever into a winning situation, I really think has a huge impact. Outsized impact considering the amount of innings that they end up pitching. But I'm a big fan of that. Alrighty. So that was the Edwin versus Devin showdown. And now we're back to some position players plus Murakami. So Murakami is the next intriguing guy because you're talking about a combination of age. He's only 25 years old. And, you know, overall power. Here's the write-up on Murakami from ESPN.com. Murakami missed being age eligible to be posted last winter by a few months. His posting process has been anticipated since 2022. Here's the bright side. 90th percentile exit velos. He would have been 5th in the MLB in exit velo, which pretty good place to be. Max exit velo would be 12th. Hard hit rate would be 1st. Now, hard hit rate, obviously he's not facing the same level of pitching, but to get the idea, when he does make contact, he hits the ball very, very hard. The big issue is we've seen the 93-mile-an-hour stats versus Murakami and also the defensive value. So here's the bullish case. The bullish case on Murakami is the combination of elite exit velos, hitting from the left side, and having some defensive value in the infield. Being in his mid-20s is rare enough to get him a big contract. However, there's the big-time downside of the swing and miss and the fact that the defensive value, although there's some, it's probably declining really fast. It's going to be a first base or DH in no time. And then what I mentioned the other day in my international free agent preview when talking about Murakami is the real question is, do they believe he can make adjustments? Do they believe he can improve at a rapid rate? If you think that he's a finished product, then there's a lot of scary stuff here. But if you think that over the course of the next 2-3 years, he can take the leap, improve his contact rate, continue to maintain that walk rate, put the ball in play a little bit more, and maybe survive in the field long enough to stay out there, then there's reason to be bullish because he does have 40 home run pop. Anyway, that's Murakami. Now, on the flip side of Murakami is one of my favorite players in baseball, and it's Josh Naylor. Josh Naylor is an interesting player for sure. It's a combination of a good age, very good contact hitter, very good base runner despite being very slow. Look at that, 3rd percentile sprint speed, yet 30 stolen bases. That's a very, very weird combination. But we saw the effect that this guy had on a lineup. We saw the effect that it had in the postseason. He's a pretty good first baseman. I like him a lot. It's similar to Bo Bichette in that there's a little bit of a contact-oriented game here that is actually, in a way, more rare than the power-oriented game. Now, he still hit 20 homers, hit 31 the year before, so power's a part of his game, but, you know, you're looking for the really rare quality. It's that 295 batting average. Just don't see that anymore. 353 on base is outstanding. I don't know. He's a tough guy to face, and I think he adds a different dimension to any lineup. So in a way, it's an interesting contrast between him and Murakami. He's 3 years older, but it's a little bit more of a proven track record. It's a little bit more of a contact-oriented track record. And for me, if I'm a good team, I'd rather have Josh Naylor. So I'm going to put Josh Naylor as my next favorite free agent. And I have Murakami even pushed even a little bit lower than I expected coming into this exercise. Now, do I like Murakami better than Eugenio Suarez or Gleyber Torres? I think that's the next question. There's also some other pitchers pulling up the rear that have to start coming in here. Now, Trent Grisham, I love Trent Grisham, but I don't have him as high as some of these other guys. His stat line is just too kooky. It's just too kooky to for me to get my head wrapped around. Breakouts happen in the big leagues, but this one is just so bizarre. I mean, look at his hitting metrics every other year up until this year. Yeah, 2020, but that's a short season, so you got to throw that out. 24th percentile in 21 and xwOBA 22, 24, and then all of a sudden this year 90 after getting almost no at-bats in 24. Comes out sick with it. Now, what does he do really well? Chase rate, 99th percentile chase rate, so that's a pretty reliable stat. Walk percentage is really good, so it's really useful for a guy to get him on base. And expected on base has always been a part of his game, getting on. I just don't think that his power numbers are going to stick. Even this year, you know, the max EV is only 51st percentile, so he's really relying on a short porch. And I think with the QO attached, I think I have him a little bit further down on my list. As much as I like him, there are some red flags. Even the defense, like I consider him a great outfielder. But you saw this year he finished a little bit below average in the outfield, and that sprint speed is certainly declining, I think. Let's go look at that again. Yeah, speed, big time declining. He used to be a burner. 93rd, 96, 91, 88. He's down to 32nd percentile, so that's going to hurt him a lot in defensively. I personally, yeah, I have too many concerns to rate him any higher than I will. Okay, so he hit more home runs away. Either way, you can see the profile. They're pretty much all dead pull. He's got a few to the oppo. I bet those are Crawford boxes. I'm going to click on one. I guarantee this is Crawford box. Let's see. Oh, yeah, this is right after Framber hit his catcher in the chest. Right before he hit his catcher in the chest. Crawford box. See, I told you, Trent's not hitting a lot of oppo tacos. What's this one? This one's in Pittsburgh, right down the line. Yeah. That's basically a pesky pull. This is probably his best bolt oppo all year. Let's see it. Ooh, off Seabass. It's a good swing, actually. If he did more of that, I'd feel a little more comfortable. But the majority of his home runs are going to be something like this. Just beating you to the spot and popping it up to right. And this one should not have been a home run, I think, in most ballparks. But we got a Yankee Stadium clone out there. So anyway, that's Trent Grisham, and I have him a little lower now. I got to look at Glaber because he's been coming up in this batch as well. GT, one of my homies, bounced back pretty good this year with a nice year at the plate on a one-year deal for the Tigers. 745 OPS, which is solid. You know, nothing spectacular, but solid. I don't know. Glaber's an interesting player because you see the age, 28. But I still think he hasn't done enough to probably secure himself a big-time deal going forward. I always worry about his defense. I feel like that's never really been a big part of his game. Never really converted. But yeah, the last year was technically his best year in terms of process. 89th percentile xwOBA, that's a career high. 78 x batting average. I mean, he's pretty low on the hard hit. I've noticed Glaber does do a lot of this thing where he kind of gets the ball off the end and just kind of bloops him into right for a lot of hits. It's kind of like part of his game more than anything. Gotten a lot better with the whiff percentage over the past few years. Look at that. He used to whiff a lot more. He used to swing a lot bigger. So he's cut down on his swing, I think, overall. But yeah, the defense is not going to get any better. He's been bad forever on defense, and the sprint speed's declining majorly. How's the bat speed decline? Slight decline in back speed. I'd be worried about that a little bit. Swing length improving, though. He's gotten it. It did look like he shortened up his swing a little bit. I mentioned how he had more whiff early in his career. So that's a good adjustment he's made to adapt to what his body can and can't do over the years. But I don't know. I wouldn't be giving him 3 years. I know he's young, but I still feel like he's more of an improve it mode still. Another year or 2 years. So we're looking at Murakami, Glaber. We gave Naylor the nod, right? The next nod. Murakami, Glaber, and then Okamoto. Oh, I want to look at his Japanese stats really quick. This is Okamoto. He's coming in around the same age-ish, 29. This past year, 992 OPS. I mean, he's demolished everybody in Japan recently. We watched him hit pull side nukes the other day. Suarez is also in the mix, so we'll go look at Suarez. as well. I'm tempted to put Okamoto ahead of Murakami. I know that's a little bit wild, but I feel a little bit more strongly about his ability to adapt than Munetaka, but I don't know. That's maybe a personal preference. I know he probably won't get as long of a contract length because he's a little bit older. But the numbers have been pretty consistent. Look at the OPS last few years. 992, 863, 958. He's been over 800 every year with a good amount of pop. 33, 31, 39, 41. Like a lot of home runs. Can play a little bit of defense. Can play first. Can play a little bit of third if you need it. All right, so I have Naylor. Let me go back and look at these free agents again because my head's spinning a little bit. I have Grisham lower. So Munetaka, Murakami, Grisham, Glaber, Suarez, and then Shota Imanaga are in the mix here as well. Looking just who else is here is kind of sneaky valuable. That's not getting any. I mean, Robert Suarez. I know he's a little bit older. All right, let's go look at Eugenio Suarez. He's such an interesting player. Big time power. Big time red flags in his game. So 49 home runs this year. Hit 228 with 49 and a 298 on base percentage. So just such a one-trick pony, such a hot streak type of guy. I don't know, man. I've never been a huge fan of Suarez in terms of like reliability, and he's now 34 and the defense is bad and everything is dead pull, but there's no denying that 49 home runs is pretty tantalizing. And I mean, we'll go look at him on reference. He's hit a ton of home runs over the past few years. Check out these home run numbers going all the way back to 2019. 49 in 2019. 15 in the short year, 31, 31, 22, 30, 49, 36. I mean, he's at 325 career dingers through age 33, which is pretty good. Now, this is a little bit of the rub. Like, he's such a streaky player. You can even see within this year. He generated 3.3 WAR for the Diamondbacks this year through 106 games and hit 248 there. So his numbers were looking really good, almost a 900 OPS. But then when he went to Seattle, he got into one of his signature funks. 0.3 WAR accumulated for Seattle, only hitting 189. And then, you know, in the postseason, we saw him do it a little bit, but overall, he was a little overmatched as well. I have him ahead of Glaber, but I have him, man, below some of these other guys. All right, let me check back in on the free agents one more time and see if there's some other people that. All right, Imanaga we need to talk about as well. He's going to probably be a 2-3 year deal, but he also has a QO now. But I like Shota, although he's a little bit like Suarez with the the declining velocity. Bouncing around a lot here, but I'm trying to figure out who exactly to rank here. So Imanaga, you know, interesting man. Like, it looked like he was all primed to, you know, get those last 3 years picked up by the Cubs. He had been basically the ace for the first 2 years on the list. Yeah, JT is another possibility too. I'll talk about him in a second. He has a possibility to sneak on this list as well. But then, you know, this year was an interesting year. The fastball velocity really dropped, 90.8 on the four seam. So we're talking about a similar phenomenon to Ranger Suarez. You know, a lefty, you know, really good command, 96th percentile in walks, but there's so many red flags in this profile this year, right? Average exit velo, and he's not a ground ball pitcher. 11th percentile average exit velo. I believe he gave up 20 home runs in his final 12 starts of the year. So that's a little scary. I mean, you see these barrel numbers, hard hit numbers, ground ball numbers. I'm curious to see what his rankings were last year. A lot of the same red flags, but you see how that exit velocity piece and that barrel piece makes a big difference in his overall production, because even this year he had a .99 whip. Like, he controls what he can control really well, but it's more of a stuff decline for him is what my fear is. You know, he had +4 run value on his four seam in 24, and then this year -10. He doesn't have a lot of places to go if he can't get value out of that four seam as well. Arm angle dropped a little bit. That probably affected his four seam shape. Let's see. All right, let's see what he was working with this year. 18 on the vert this year. Last year, he was at 18.3. So not a lot of difference despite the lower slot. You would think that would have made it play better with a flatter vertical approach angle, but that was not necessarily the case. He got crushed this year on fastballs. This is the comparison from last year to this. Expected slugging was always a concern, but he's able to mitigate that because he doesn't let a lot of guys on base, so there's not a lot of multi-home home runs off of him. But, man, I'd be hard-pressed to put Shota above a lot of these guys, but I think I'd put him ahead of some of these hitters. All right, let's rank a few guys, and then we're going to go ahead and look at a couple guys at the very end that could pop in here. Real Muto and a couple pitchers. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put Kazuma Okamoto as my number 16th with Murakami right behind him.
Love you.
Hey, dude. Are you leaving?
Mm-hmm.
Kiss? I'll come off the camera.
I love you so much.
I love you. I'll see you later. I'll make your salad while you're gone, so I'll be waiting for you.
You're the best.
All right.
Love you.
Love you. You smell good.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Because I'm clean.
Because you're clean. That's true.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Munetaka Murakami. All right, so those two I'm putting in right now. Murakami is your typical risky pick, but I like it. And now we have, who else do we have in this range on the board still? So it's Imanaga, it's Eugenio Suarez, it's Gleyber Torres, and now we need to add JT to the mix, who one of my favorite players in baseball, of course, because I'm obsessed with catchers. He's been the best catcher in baseball overall, all-around catcher, probably the last 6-7 years now. He's probably going into a little bit of a different part of his career at this point, but I have so much respect for this dude. What he brings to the table, both behind the plate, catching guys, but also throwing guys out, and also a solid contributor on offense for a catching position. I'm very high on him. I'm wondering how long the length of the deal will be, but I'm such a big fan of JT overall, and this is super impressive. How are you 76th percentile sprint speed when you squat the whole damn season? That's an incredible athlete, and he's #1 in pop time too. So his physical stuff is incredible. He might just be that freak that doesn't decline physically at the same rate as others, despite how hard his job is. So this was his first down year at the plate in a while. He had been above average in xWOBA every year since 2017. Expected batting average is still above average, but the slug piece kind of dropped off a little bit. I wonder if he tried to make a swing change this year and it ended up backfiring. That happens sometimes for guys, so maybe you can go back and kind of revert back a little bit. Whiff rate, not terrible, back to league average. Walk percentage, he could do a little better with that. I think that's probably because he chases too much. I mean, I know with JT, I try to get him to chase a lot. I'm just not hitting quite enough balls in the air, basically. This is a big concern, and probably what's hurting him offensively the most is just the bat speed overall. So maybe he'll do some bat speed training this year, and if he can get that back up, you'll probably see some of the power numbers return. But I don't really see a ton that's like obviously declining for JT, so I think any team would be really lucky to have this guy. He's caught some of the best pitchers in baseball. He's been in huge playoff games. He impacts the game so much in the clubhouse, but also just in every kind of way. So I'm going to actually skip over these other dudes, and I'm putting JT as my next favorite free agent. I just think catching has so much value, and man, whoever gets this guy, it might be the Phillies keeping him, but you're bringing such a veteran, such a pro's pro into your clubhouse, and I certainly buy into that. All right, so 19 and 20. Shota, Suarez, Torres, who else? Who else here? Which contenders need a catcher right now? Let's take a little detour to think about that. Let's go through all the teams in the big leagues. Well, what I'll do is I'll go, this will be the easiest way to do this. Go to catcher leaderboards, like catcher throwing, and then I'll just go through the teams. All right. Angels. Who are the Angels working with? Darno and Ohapi. They're a no. Astros. Yanier Diaz and Caratini. They're all set. Athletics is Langoliers, he's not going there. Blue Jays is Kirk, he's not going there. Braves is Murphy, he's not going there. Brewers is Contreras, he's not going there. Cardinals is Pajes, I think they're happy with that. Cubs, they're probably going to stick with Kelly, Carson Kelly. Diamondbacks, who's the current catchers for the Diamondbacks? Gabriel Moreno, so they're probably still sticking with him. So that's not going to be a good fit. Dodgers are all set. Giants. Oh, they have our guy, #1 defender in the world, Patrick Bailey. So he's probably staying. You're not going to take him out with his defensive value. So we haven't even found one fit yet. Guardians, they won't have the money, but I think they just brought back Hedges and Naylor, so they're a non-fit. Man, it's hard to look for a fit for him. Rangers have Raleigh. Marlins aren't going to pay him. Mets have Alvey. I don't see it. Nationals, they're still working with Ruiz, Hubert Ruiz and Riley Adams, and I don't think they're going to spend the money either, so I don't see that. Orioles, that's still Rushman, and they have Basayo there. Padres is an interesting one. I think Padres have some opportunity, potentially a catcher, right? Fermin, Diaz, Maldonado. What's Fermin's situation? Does he have more time with them? Rangers have a bottom 5 catchers war. Okay. And then the Phillies as well. We'll keep looking. I'm curious about Freddie Fermin's situation. What's his where's he in terms of service time? He's not even a free agent until 2030, so they have him for a while. So I don't know. I don't think they're a great fit either. Padres, Phillies we know about. Pirates, we know they're not spending. So the Rangers were another one of our possibilities, right? Yeah, Higgy and Jonah Heim. I don't know if that'll happen either, to be honest with you. Rays, we know that's not happening. Reds is Stevenson and Trevino. I don't know. Sox. I could squint my eyes and see the Red Sox as a potential fit here. Narvaez, they really love him defensively, but is he a real everyday guy? Connor Wong. I don't know. Rockies, they're not paying him. Royals, they have Salvi. Tigers, they have Dingler. They're fine. Twins. Vasquez, but I believe he's a free agent, right? Gasper's playing winter ball. Jeffers, maybe the Twins? And then Yankees. So JT's got a pretty small market, I think, if you want to be a starting catcher. Yeah, I mean, maybe the Yankees, but I don't think they're going to give up on Wellesley when he was pretty good defensively this year, and he's making no money, and they want to spend their money other places. So I don't know. I think JT, who I have in there, I think, unfortunately, the market's not that robust probably for him. He's probably looking at 2 or 3 options. But I still think he's a big-time guy. So people are saying the Padres don't have any money. They spent it a lot for years, huh? Pretty unexpectedly, but they did a lot. Wong is the lone remainder from the Mookie trade for the Red Sox. Sean Murphy, Dalton Rushing, because, yeah, the Braves do have Baldwin now as a catcher, so they might be out on Murphy. Rushing with... He has some value when he's not going to be the starter, when Will Smith's going to be the starter, so that's a little bit interesting. But anyway, that's our quick dive on who is remaining there. We still have, for the last 2 spots, we're looking at Imanaga, Suarez, Torres. Who else? I don't have Grisham over those guys. I just don't, personally. All right, Merrill Kelly. He's 37. Bassett's 37. That's a good showdown. Merrill Kelly versus Bassett versus Giolito. Giolito, no qualifying offer, makes him actually pretty appealing. And then there's Ozuna, who is interesting to look at too. Ryan O'Hearn quietly had a good year. All right, I don't think any of these other guys, maybe Bader. I I still don't think he's in this class. He's close, but not quite. Polanco's sneaky good. Woodruff is an interesting one, too, if you believe in his health. Let me look at Woodruff for a second. I watched a lot of Woodruff, and I thought he looked really good when I watched him this year. Yeah, 3.20, only the 12 starts coming back, but this guy's been a really consistent performer. I wonder if you take a look at the medical and you don't move Woodruff up the board quite a bit. He could be a steal here. He could be a steal here. I actually talked to Bader. I don't have a whole lot of information except that Bader wants to play every day. He feels like he can play every day, and he can continue the evolution that he made this year and his upward trajectory with the bat. So I love Bader, but I don't think he's in my top 20. Woodruff's an interesting one because he did have the shoulder injury, but I like Woodruff a lot. In a way, I like him almost as much as some of these other guys on our list. In a way, I could see myself wanting him over a Suarez or a Gallen, even if it's a shorter-term deal. He might be a little bit more desirable just because the deal will be shrunk somewhat. Robert Suarez is another one to look at. Good call, Marcus Valdez. We'll add him to the possible list here. Let's go look at Robert Suarez. Another really good relief pitcher. This is actually a sneaky, decent relief pitcher class, actually. There's Fairbanks is in this class as well. He's intriguing if you're into that. But, I mean, one thing I love about Suarez is he's very good with his walk rate. He doesn't beat himself. He's pretty good at controlling contact, which is pretty rare for a relief pitcher. 2.97 this year in 70 games. So back-to-back years, sub-3 with a sub-1 whip. Really, for his career, he's got a .98 whip. I know there's some age here, but I like him a lot more than maybe some of these other guys with the question marks. I might move him up the board quite a bit. Velocity's still great, 98.6%. Let's see if anything has trended in a weird way. Not as dominant this year according to xwOBA, but looks like it's just driven by being a little bit easier to hit. Yeah, I got hit a little bit harder this year. Whiff rate has never been his main thing. So it's like he's an interesting closer because he's not a dominant strikeout closer, although he's good. It's nothing crazy. Like his K rate's 83%, 28%, whereas most dominant closers are well over 30%. He's an interesting one. This is tough. These last two spots are really tough. Let me go back into the chat here for a sec. As a Jays fan, if the rumors are true, they're in on Tucker and Polanco to replace Bo. Plus a pitcher would be a great offseason. They're definitely going to need to continue to reinforce that starter strength. And it'd be interesting to see if they're actually in on any of the relievers, because they might want a closer and then maybe move Hoffman down in the pecking order a little bit. But it'll be interesting. And yeah, Robert Suarez, Bobby fastballs. He does throw a lot of fastballs. Got a great changeup, but a hell of a lot of fastballs. You're right about that. I do like the fact that he toggles sinkers and four seams. I have him for 60% four seam this year, 16% sinker. That's just enough to keep him off the four seam shape if he needs to. Ozuna is another one to look at in a second too. How many pitchers have all of their pitches in a single chart in the movement chart? Yeah, that's what Mitch is talking about here with Robert Suarez. Look at that. They're all in the same quadrant. Everything goes the same direction, which in theory wouldn't be great. But what he does is he forces you to swing, and you hit the ball a lot, and he's coming at you with some serious velo. I would love if he could get one pitch going left. Anything going left or a bullet slider, he might get that K rate way up, and you might be looking at a guy who has another level to tap into, actually. I think Woodruff takes the QO. He already has $10 million from Milwaukee from a buyout, so he get 32 total and not have a QO next year. That makes sense. Plus, he's pretty comfortable with Milwaukee. Did he get the QO? Did he get the QO? Is that a fact? Uh-oh, where did my pencil go? Here it is. Too bad I took away the QOs, but we can do that again. Qualifying offer, MLB. Woodruff got one? Schwarber, Tucker, Suarez, Framber, Bichette, Cease, Grisham, Torres, Diaz, Woodruff. I think we're right. I think Woodruff is a possible candidate to take it. Definite possible candidate to take it. All right, I'm going to be honest. I have Suarez a lot higher up this list than other guys. I'm not as high on Suarez or Torres. I think Imanaga still has value. I'm going to go Robert Suarez right here at number 19. I'm a little bit obviously biased towards the impact of a relief pitcher, but I haven't seen anything in his profile that I don't love. Like, I think he's going to be great, and there's possibility to go to a next level with him. And then I think I'm going to go with my guy, Brandon Woodruff, here as my number 20. So this is my final list. I know that I didn't include some guys that other people are really high on, and, you know, they're good players. But for me, these are my top 20 dudes overall. Baseball and Coffee, top 20 free agents here. Whoops. Kyle Tucker, Alex Bregman, Framber Valdez, Bo Bichette, Cody Bellinger, Kyle Schwarber, Pete Alonso. Then I have Tetsuya Imai, Michael King, Dylan Cease, Zach Gallen, Ranger Suarez, and a whole pitcher group right there. Edwin Sugar Diaz and Devin Williams, my top two relievers. And then I have Josh Naylor, one of my favorite players, at number 15. And then I have Okamoto over Murakami. I know that's probably a little bit controversial, but yeah, it's what I believe in. And then Real Muto, Suarez, and Woodruff round out my top 20 guys. Let's keep looking, though. I have a little bit more time today. We'll do a full 2 hours. And I am curious to go ahead and look at some of the other guys that we like in the peripheral of this. ESPN seems to have a better ranking. We'll just banter around a couple of these dudes. Helsley is another one whose stock dropped. Helsley, Fairbanks. Keller somehow gets rated ahead of Helsley, which I find insane. Let's go look at a showdown between Brad Keller and Helsley. So here's Brad Keller. And here is Helsley. I know Brad Keller's really good. It's a good comment by Marcus. He is. It's a huge ground ball rate. His velo jumped up this year. Brad Keller. I mean, you see the red here. This is incredible. But you're talking about this was a true breakout. He had been a starter before. He had never really found success like this before. You know, it's just a question of can he keep going? I mean, this is a hell of a year. 68 games, 69 and 2/3, .96 whip. This reminds me a lot of my 2022 year. Pretty similar stats overall. I ended up getting a 2-year deal. I was a lot older, so maybe he's in line for a multi-year deal. But you got to look at the whole career and kind of decide: do you buy into these changes? Are these sustainable? I mean, look at him beforehand. Really not at the same level. I know the velo was a big deal, and that's right here. Fastball velocity. He had been below average, 43rd percentile in 24, and then he jumps to 88th percentile, career high. So that would be the upside case. That's the true underlying metric that should be sustainable is fastball velocity. That should be pretty sticky to this year. He'll probably have a well above average fastball velocity again this year, but I don't know if he can keep everything else the same. This was the first year he did anything in terms of strikeouts. You know, hard hit, that's always been kind of his game, is weak ground balls, jamming a lot of guys. Let's see where his big-time pitch value was this year. Actually, four-seam fastball, that's new. Four-seam, sinker was also effective, really everything across the board. He had a hell of a year. But I think if you look at the overall body of work between him and Helsley, it's a little closer. So 30 years old for Keller and 31 for Helsley. And I know Helsley had the weird year, particularly with the Mets. When he came over, there was some tipping. He's probably in his head really bad. But this guy has still got all the potential to be a dominant guy. Look at his previous years. 99th in xwOBA in 22, 95 in 24. K percentage had been really high. I mean, you're talking about fastball velocity. You're talking about basically if you're into stuff and stuff metrics, you're going to buy into Ryan Helsley for sure. Let's go look at where he ranks. You know what? Let's just go ahead and do leaders. Pitching 2025, and then we're going to go by plus stats. No. We need pitch modeling, and then we need relief pitchers, pitch modeling, stuff plus. What the hell is this? the hell is going on here? What did I do wrong here? Let's try this again. Pitching leaders 2025. Pitch modeling. Stuff plus. Now we're going to go to as a relief pitcher. Okay. All right, here's our Stuff Plus leaderboard. Ryan Helsley, number 2. So that's what I mean. It's a stuff situation. Now I wonder where Keller is. See if we can find him. It's like a needle in a haystack sometimes. '67th out of 106. So if you're looking for a Stuff Plus metric when you're showing down between these two guys, Helsley's going to have him crushed. Helsley's way ahead in terms of stuff, but Keller had the better year. They're similar ages, Keller being 1 mile an hour lower. Now, one thing I wanted to note with Helsley is like it was his fastball this year. People are going to take a hard look at this, and they're going to try to figure out what's going on here. Negative 15 run value on his 4-seamer, which when I tried to look at it, it did feel like maybe there was a little bit of a tipping aspect to it. But at the same time, I just think he needs to lean in more to his slider effectiveness. I mean, he still had a positive 12 run value on slider, and I'd like to see his slider percentage, creep up, which he finally did the last 2 years, but he didn't stick with it as hard with the Mets as he should have. Let me see something here. 2025 by month. And he had a really hard time figuring that out. When he finally got some success at the very end with the Mets, this is why, 55.7% slider. But anyway, getting back to my thoughts on that 4-seam shape, there really was no difference. Like in 2024, his 4-seam was 17.5 vert, 3.4 horizontal at 99.6. And then last year it was 17.7 vert at 2.2 horizontal at 99.3. So basically the same velo, basically the same vert, and about 1 inch different on horizontal, but not in a way that should be, very funky for his ability to get guys out. So it's either a tipping, it's a location thing, it's the way they're seeing it. Maybe it's a combination of all those things where he's just not throwing enough sliders to really take guys off the fastball. Like maybe he needs to push his slider rate into the 55% rate, something like that. He's at 47, maybe even more slider can do him some good. But I'd be betting on Helsley over Keller off of track record personally. But I think, it could go either way. On that. All right, so that's another guy that was an interesting person to look at. Merrill Kelly versus Chris Bassett is a good showdown. Versus Lucas Giolito. Let's look at those 3. Kelly, Bassett, Giolito. Although, real quick, we have some stuff in the chat. Someone can fix Helsley. He's just been too good. That's how I feel. A lot of people think he's tipping. Now, I have a little bit of information because we went and did a whole episode trying to watch him tipping during the season. I couldn't find it. I know he changed his hands, but apparently it was happening on the way to him getting set. So really, it should be an easy fix. Like that seems like a pretty easy thing to stop doing. So I feel pretty good about that. I didn't include Fairbanks in that look either, so maybe I should do that really quick because Fairbanks is also nasty. Maybe we'll just keep going with this stream a little longer. Fairbanks, 2.83 last year, 61 games. Did somehow, and really historically, his strikeout rate's not been as high as you would think. But this dude's nasty, man. You see this Cuddy 4-seam up top. He's got the death ball, breaking ball, slider pitch, 85.3 mile an hour slider with straight down drop, 31 years old. Really hasn't had crazy workload, so I'd be a little worried about that. He did finally get his 60 games in this year, but he hasn't been consistent doing that. Let's see some of his metrics and how they've kind of looked. This is a funky thing about him, his arm angle. Look how, sorry. This is Pete Fairbanks. Look at how high the arm angle is. 57, 63, 60. This year's up 59. So that lends itself to that straight down kind of thing going on with the perceived cut fastball a la Trey Savage. Doesn't have the split though. I don't know. All the metrics still really like him, think he's basically the same pitcher. This is weird though. Man, his extension has really changed throughout his career. That's not something you see too often. 93rd percentile extension all the way down to 54. Maybe that's a health-related reason, but that definitely changes a little bit of what his velocity feels like at the plate. So I don't know. Another interesting reliever to kind of bring into the mix. Fairbanks versus Helsley versus Keller. You know, right now I still got Helsley as the top of that group, but definitely below the Devin Williams, Robert Suarez, Edwin Diaz group. Yeah, you look at the total games pitched. This is a little bit of a concern of mine, but if you believe in Pete Fairbanks as a possible playoff pitcher, then you're not going to care as much about this. You just get him healthy for the postseason, like a la Dodgers. So I could see maybe a Dodgers fit here. Used to be with, maybe Friedman has some history with him. Maybe going back. I don't think so. Maybe he was in LA already, but he's been good. He's been over 1 WAR pretty consistently the last few seasons. He's very hard to hit, but this is a little bit of the thing. Look at the games. 47 games this year. 49, 23, 46, and 24. This is the first year he gets over 60 games. To me, as a free agent pitcher who's getting paid $8, $9 or more million a year, you got to hit 60 games. You got to, or you're just not providing enough value unless you're with the team that is kind of hedging for you to the bullpen. I also think it's just weird that his strikeout numbers are so middling the last 2 years. You look at the previous years, 13.2, 11.8, 14.3, 13.5, but then under 9? Under a strikeout per inning, that's a little weird to me. So yeah, I have him backed up a little bit. Rays messed up not picking up the option and trading. He could possibly get above $11 million as a free agent. Yeah, I don't know what the Rays see that maybe they're feeling like they couldn't have gotten that done. Ooh, there's another entrant into this. Well, this is absolutely one of my favorite pitchers in the game. And I know he had a weird year this year, and he's older than these other dudes. But I love this guy. One of the few pitchers that I was super jealous of in my career because I just felt like, man, we pitch a similar style. He's just better than me. Anyway, another workhorse year for Rossiel. He 67 and a third, 73 strikeouts, a 1 whip. Last year he had the 1.95. I actually like him a lot. I know he's 35, but this guy has such pitchability. Used to be a starter. Second half was amazing. If you go look at his career, he's been incredibly consistent over the years. Just look at this absolute, just hanging in the Louvre right here. Pretty much good at everything. Got barreled a little more this year. Okay. He adjusted. He dominated in the second half. Here's a comment about Fairbanks. Rays may be worried of the medical. Picking up option, getting stuck with him, and able to trade him isn't a move they make. That's true, and that makes sense. He has always had some sort of nagging situation, Fairbanks. That's why you don't see those appearance totals getting to the 60 level. But you look at Rossiel Iglesias, I'm actually tempted to put him ahead of all of these dudes because just for consistency's sake and the fact that he's only going to probably get, 2 years. So maybe of these remaining relievers, I like Iglesias, I like Helsley, then I like probably Keller, and then Fairbanks. Kenley Jansen is another one that we just got into the chat here. He's still doing it, brother. 933 games. I'm so jealous of this. This guy's still rolling. He's going to get to 1,000 freaking games. He's going to go to the Hall of Fame. He had a .95 whip this year. And it's mostly on the strength of just the weirdest cutter ever. Look at this pitch, this pitch plot. It's on the left side of the chart, meaning that ball's going hard left. And that's just his freaky pitch. Threw at 82% this year. And if you thought that level of red was good for Rossiel Iglesias, just wait till you see Kenley Jansen in his career. This is ridiculous. Because I've looked at this before. Dun, dun, dun. Slight regression and getting hard hit the last 2 years. But other than that, 100, 100, 92, 93, 88, 93, 97, 82, 62 on xWOBA. That's insane. Hard hit percentage, 98th, 99th, 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 100th, 99th. That's hard to beat. I don't see a Jansen Dodgers reunion because that did not end well, but I don't know. We'll see. I think he'll be another mercenary where he'll go to get saves somewhere. He has to be a closer because he's trying to rack up those saves. But it's an elite cutter with a weird shape and a crazy extension. And he's just so good. He's just been so good for so long. I think he'll end up on another team that needs a proven guy in the back end, and he'll go out there and do the same thing again until it stops working. The velocity's been kind of going like this for the last few years, but I think that's okay. 259 is more than good enough, and he's going to get another big bag to close for a team this year. So, you know, Kenley, I mean, he's looking at a 1-year deal. He's 38 years old, but yeah, man, this is a pretty good relief class, don't you think? Adam, are you planning on having DJ or Garrett Cole on your show? Yes, both. So be prepared for that in the future. Just saw an article that said former Pittsburgh Pirate player that said that he's heard Skeens on multiple occasions saying he wants to be traded and wants to go to the Yankees. Do you think there's any truth there? Yeah, maybe, but I mean, it's all speculation, and most players, you know, want to go to the big time if they're built for that. So it's not surprising to hear that, but who knows? You know, who knows? I mean, ultimately, the Pirates. I saw Ben Sherrington came out and said he wasn't trading Skeens. So we'll see how it goes. We will see how it goes this year in terms of that trade stuff. Guards looking for a closer, I hear. Too soon. Tyler Rogers is another one, you know, the underhanded goat. Man, there's so many good relievers on this market. I'm a big fan of him because his effectiveness is not tied to velocity, so there's not as much red flag. And I love the fact that even though he's a weird arm angle, 100th percentile in walk percentage, 100th percentile in barrel percentage, this would be the guy that if I were the Rockies and I were in a winning contention, this would be the dude for me. Funk, there's some funk to it. There's some funk to it, but there's also, you know, a level of absolute rubber armness, which is not really a thing. But look, 81 games this year, that led the league. If you can throw that many games, you're impacting more games than other guys. That gives you a lot of value. I think he does pretty well. I think a smart team that's in a winning window, he's a good guy to have on your squad. And I have him ranked ahead of a lot of these dudes. I would have him. I would pay Tyler Rogers before I'd pay Brad Keller personally, and before I would pay probably Kenley at this point. But of this group, I think it goes Helsley, Iglesias, Rogers, Keller, Jansen, Fairbanks. So to recap, I have Helsley, I have Iglesias, then I have Rogers, Jansen, Keller, Fairbanks as my group here. So that's my little reliever roundup here. There's more, but we can't look at them all. I wanted to go look at that three-way showdown though between Bassett, Merrill Kelly, and Giolito. Now Giolito is interesting because he's younger than them, but it's a totally different type of pitcher. So we'll start off with looking at Giolito, friend of the program, of course, and then we will pull up Mr. Bassett, who I'm hoping to get on. I'm working on that. But I'm going to give him a little breather from baseball for a few days, obviously, since they just were playing. And then also Merrill Kelly, also a great dude. Played with him on Team USA. Big Jordan guy, big sneakerhead. Played in Korea for like 4 or 5 years. Came back. He's kind of one of the early dudes that did that with success. All right. So he's 37 and Bassett's 37 as well. Well, he will be in a second. And then Giolito's 31. So that's the thing. Is Giolito as good as them? Recent track record says no. 4.90 and 22, 4.88 and 23. And then this year he came back with a pretty good year, albeit the advanced metrics don't buy into it. They have him as a 12th percentile in expected ERA. And you look, he's below average in every metric here except for extension. Below average ground ball, below average hard hit, below average barrel, below average walk, K, whiff, chase. One thing that he does do is he finds a way to make it work. He's a little bit of a tough visual, and I think these numbers can trend the other direction, and I'm curious where they were in his great years. So what's the big difference is the K rate. This is a big concern for Giolito, and that's not surprising that they didn't go ahead and extend the QO because I think he probably would have taken it since he had so much fun there, and I think maybe they were worried about that. Paying him that much money, they think he's clearly like more like in the tens of millions in value versus the 20s of millions. I don't know. So Giolito versus Bassett versus Merrill Kelly. All right, here's Seabass. Metrics are a little better on Seabass. We all know about him. Actually looked incredible in the bullpen, and that's a little bit of hidden value for Bassett here as well. So he's really good at soaking up innings. He's an absolute horse when it comes to actually pitching a ton of innings. Let me pull up a reference real quick. So I think Bassett's oddly, if you can get him on a 2-year deal, I kind of think there's sneaky hidden value in here beyond his starting ability, is that he can also convert to the bullpen and be a factor down the stretch. But you go ahead and you look at this workload situation for him since 21, 157 and a third, 181 and 2/3, 200 innings and 23 for the Jays, 171 last year, 170 this year, plus what he did in the bullpen in the postseason. He's a right around a 4 ERA pitcher at this point, but I think that's more than enough if you're going to pour that into 170 innings and be like the number 4 starter on a team. So I like him a lot. Merrill Kelly, I don't like as much in the bullpen, but I think he might oddly be a little bit better starter than Bassett at the moment. It's a similar profile. They go deep. He did have the 3.52. Merrill Kelly has some of the best command in the game. He has a little bit of a velocity drop-off issue as well. 91.8 on the 4-seam. Let's see how that's been trending. Yep, fastball velocity drop, big-time drop from the other years. That's a little bit of a concern. Extension also falling off. It makes me worry about him athletically a little bit. But he's doing it with a really good walk percentage, good enough whiff percentage, really good chase rate. But there's a lot of contact concerns. So him and Giolito are both a little bit worse at contact managing than a Bassett is. Although Bassett's wasn't as good this year either, although you see the exit velo is really good. So that's strong. I'm going to rate Bassett as the top of these 3, with then Giolito coming in behind him because of the age, and then Merrill Kelly. I think that's my personal opinion. All right, we are over 2 hours, so I have to wrap it up, but let's get in the chat here for a minute. This was a free agent frenzy. We went through literally a gazillion dudes here, and this was my top 20. We'll go over it once again. Tucker, Bregman, Valdez, Bichette, Bellinger, Schwarber, Alonso, Amai, King, and Cease are my top 10. See, I have King above Cease and Amai above Cease, which I think is different than others. And then I have Gallen over Suarez. I have Gallen a lot higher than other people have. But this is we went over a lot of names today. And this is the next 10. Gallen, Suarez, Sugar, Williams, Naylor, Okamoto, Murakami, Realmuto, Suarez, and Woodruff. And then we just went over like at least 7 or 8 other interesting guys. Like really, truly, there's like 50, 60 dudes that are going to help impact teams this year in free agency. And one thing that's so crazy with the way that the game is now broken down analytically by front offices, it's just a phenomenon of more and more guys signing 1-year deals, and then the free agents market becoming bigger and more bloated every year, which kind of hurts that bottom end. It's still great for the top end, but you see the bottom end ends up in this situation where I'm sure it'll happen again this year. There'll be 50, 60 guys looking for a job at the very end of it. And it gets a little, who's a game of chicken. Are you willing to go into the season without a contract? And teams start lowballing at that point. Appreciate that, Dan. I felt like this was a frenzy. I hope you guys enjoyed this show today. This has been a fun one to do. A couple more things in here. Blue Jays fans have much love for Bassett. I know he has love for them, so we'll see if they can line up on a contract. I know he'd be happy to go back there. That'll be interesting to see. How much of the conversation between teams and free agents is based on performance? Addressing existing questions about Helsley fastball versus negotiating years and money. It's all tied in one. I mean, obviously years and money, but at the same time, like when you're connecting with a player, you want to know their current feeling on why maybe they struggled. Like if I'm recruiting Helsley, I'm talking to him about how can we not only line up on a contract or whatever in my interest, but also I want to know his thoughts on what he needs to do to get back to being himself and stuff like that. So I don't know. It all ties in, and it depends on the level of dialogue that the player is willing to have. There's sometimes that teams want to talk to a player without making an offer, and players will refuse. I did that one year. There was a team that wanted me to talk to their whole pitching program, but there was no offer. And I'm like, well, if you're going to actually make me an offer, I'd love to talk to you guys. But if you just want me to tell you about, what I think about my pitching and, pitching in general, I'm not really willing to do that without us actually, potentially, hooking up with a contract here. So I don't know. Free agency is just a weird time. Here's some other underrated relievers listed here by QTRF. Caleb Ferguson, Sean Armstrong, those guys had good years. Finnegan, who's an interesting guy, has been a long-time closer, really juiced up his splitter percentage this year with the Tigers, but doesn't have a big strikeout rate. Milner, which is the really effective lefty. Kirby Yates, he's old as dirt, and didn't have his best year, but 2 years ago he was the best pitcher in the game, basically. Phil Maton, soft throwing but quite effective guy. The market has not been kind to him. He keeps getting projected for 8 or 9 or 10 million a year by outlets, and then he ended up signing for what, 2 million this year with the Cardinals. So I'm rooting big time for my guy Phil, but who knows? Thielbar's older, but grades pretty well in Stuff Plus, so he's going to keep going. Lefty. What else we got here? Scherzer is supposed to be number 1 on that list. You can go ahead and make it a top 21. You're welcome. Yeah, I think Max will get another deal. Verlander will get another deal, another 1-year deal with somebody. So that'll be fun. Trades are tougher because trades tend to come out of nowhere. And for me personally, I would love an offseason trade deadline at the winter meetings. I think that would open it up for the full attention on free agency. That would be the only way for teams to make their teams better. Make their rosters better is by actually spending money and signing guys. But trades are tough because sometimes they come out of left field and they're hard to project. I know School Bowl is on the market potentially, but boy, I mean, teams are going to have to make a huge leap of faith to go get him. I could see my Mets going to get him, but that's going to cost like a Carson Bench and maybe a McLean and things you don't want to give up. So it's a tough calculus. How many teams contact you? It depends on the player at free agency. For me, it was always like 4 or 5 at this stage, and maybe some more would come in later as the market started to develop. But it wasn't like ever like 15 like you read about sometimes. I know some people have that, but that was not my experience. I will always remember Maton breaking his hand before the postseason because he gave up a hit to his brother, which is crazy. Yeah, that's true. Stuff Plus should be on a Servant percentile list. Yeah, they don't have but Stuff Plus is like everybody has their own Stuff Plus value and Stuff Plus model. So until MLB comes up with their own or they borrow it from another one, you're not going to see it listed. But I agree, that would be cool. Now I can say my Mets. I mean, it's my Mets, it's my Yanks. It is. Either way. No way the Mets trade Benj or McLean for 1 year of School Ball. I mean, yeah. I know, but it's going to take because somebody's going to have to give a big one. You know, somebody's going to have to give a big price. All right, that's it for the show today. Thanks for sticking with me for well over 2 hours in our free agent frenzy. That was a fun episode. And on Friday, we are back with Eric Hosmer. He will be on at around 10:15, and we're going to go for maybe an hour, maybe an hour and a half. We'll do about 30 minutes on him and his story and his stuff, and then me and him will lock in on more off-season topics, and we'll talk about different things since he breaks down baseball as well and does a really great job of it. So we're very lucky to have Eric on. He'll be on Friday, and that'll be a normal thing. We'll have guests on Mondays and Fridays, and then on Wednesdays we'll maybe have some long streams like this. So thanks for tuning in for me today. You guys are the best. You guys rock, and I will see you on Friday. Be there, be square. All right, see you guys later. Bye-bye.